Welcome to Spain. How are you, Gaetano?
I am mucho bueno. Muy bueno? Muy bueno, not mucho
Muy,
bueno.
muy bueno. Bueno, bueno.
Bueno
Bueno,
bueno,
bueno.
demasiado
I
bueno.
think, you know what? I think you can say whatever you want so long as you're being friendly. That's my opinion.
I think so.
And Gaetano, I think you might have an Spain, maybe? I hope, because I don't. So hopefully you got a
I
story.
do, and it's a little bit of an Spain, and if I may say so myself, an Gaetano moment. Um,
Uh-oh.
I was with a friend of mine the other day, and we were at the hardware store because I needed to get something to hang photos on the wall without because I have a plaster wall and you can't put a nail in a plaster wall, and the thing was too heavy for stickers, and so I was like, what are my options?
Wait. Time out. Who has plaster walls here that with a lot of like I've only had concrete walls that you can't put anything in. So that's another story for another
Well, I
day.
guess I'm confusing concrete plaster, hard surfaces. Let's just go with that.
Oh,
An
okay.
impenetrable an
There we go.
impenetrable
Okay,
surface.
good. I might be mistaking those materials, but I was like, yeah, okay, go ahead. So something you cannot get a nail in very easily, you were
Right.
trying to get a nail in.
And so
Okay,
I was
perfect.
telling this to my friend at the bus stop, and she's like, "Well, let's go to the hardware store and we'll ask." And I'm like, "Well, great, you
Mm-hmm.
ask because my Spanish is still horrible." And
You can ask for something you know the never
and so
mind.
she's
Okay.
like, "Okay, blah blah blah," and tells him, and then he goes into this long speech of explaining what is
Right.
needed and stuff. And I was like, well, this is getting a little long. Like, she's gonna have fun translating this. And she goes, did you get that? And I was like, well, I think what he was saying is I need X, Y, and Z, and this would be the best options. And she looked at me and she gave me the biggest smile and she's like, you do
Oh.
understand things now, don't you?
Oh,
And I was really proud
that's so
because I maybe
nice.
understood like every 7 words, but putting those
Right.
like 10 words I understood got me the gist of what I needed. I felt so proud of
Mm-hmm.
myself. I was like, I'm completely
That's
illiterate, but
such a
I'm
great
surviving.
Yeah, that's such a great moment though, I think, because I think it's a myth that you need to understand every single word that is spoken,
Right.
right? And there is this intermediate place where you're like, I'm sort of getting the gist of it. And that's where it's like you're in a really good place where you're understanding enough Spanish, but you definitely still can't be in a table full of Spanish people talking because you can't jump from one conversation to another.
Right.
So that's something that's extremely advanced. But the one on one conversation you could have because you're. But it's still intimidating if she wasn't there because you would feel more stressed about having to understand it. And then
Exactly.
you probably would have understood
I would have
nothing,
understood
right?
nothing. And I wasn't able to talk back to him. Just because I understood, now let's
Right.
want to be clear. Just because I understood what I was saying, what he was saying, doesn't mean I could respond in
You're not
like,
coming back to it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but that's exciting though. I feel like that's a really exciting sort of
It
language
was a win. It was a language win.
milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I get to that point where I someone's talking to me and I'm sort of getting it, and then I there's a point where I'm sort of maybe not starting to, and if they keep talking, if somebody's really just like talking Spanish to me and not really giving a break and making sure I'm following, it's very difficult because there is a point where I have to start thinking I'm going to need to stop them or ask them to repeat or something, you
Hmm.
know? And that's like then that's going on in my head instead of thinking about what they're saying. So it's a okay. So anyway, today this is a little bit of what we're going to talk about today, which is um why is living in another country so a difficult and often a surprise for people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And people are moving. A lot of people are moving to Spain and other countries, but obviously we live in Spain. There's a lot of people moving to Spain and a lot of people going back home,
Hmm.
and that's the reality of it. The reality is that living in a different country is can be very difficult, and I think people are a little unaware of why that would be, and we're just going to talk a little bit about that.
Right. We're talking about the reality. And I think, we talked about moving to other countries. And I think it's important to say that this applies to moving anywhere. If you live in Alabama and you move from like Jackson to Mobile, you could be having the same issues that we're talking about because you are
Mm-hmm.
changing what you know and everything and new systems and new realities. And granted, staying in state might be easier. I mean, moving across the world is completely different in some aspects, but you are still
Right.
you, and you have to accept the new place you are. right? And
Right, and also, I don't think, like you said, just to be clear, this is not unique to moving to Spain. The things that we're going to talk about,
mm-hmm,
this is probably one of our episodes that really would talk to just literally moving away from where you've been living if you've never done that
right.
and you don't have any experience in that. If you're, like you said, if you're thinking of moving to another city in a big country, or you're thinking of moving to another country, there is a reality to that I think we're gonna jump into talking about what those things are.
Right.
You know.
We're gonna talk
Yeah.
about it. What are the things? So, so we talk about Spain. Like, why are so many people moving here? Like the Spain specific, or a lot of countries, right? It's because they're on the top 10 lists of places to move to, right? So people, I think a lot of people arrive here, and any place that a lot of people move to, with an expectation based on hyped up articles versus the reality of what it means to actually move,
Well,
right?
and also they may have been on holiday there. So
Right.
you've been on holiday somewhere. You loved the climate. You loved the food. You loved the city. It was a nice walkable city. Everybody seemed happy. You were happy because you were on
You got to
holiday
sleep
and you
in
were
every day.
relaxed
Yeah.
and yeah, you were like hanging out and visiting museums and going to the beach or whatever your thing is, and you're thinking, why aren't I living like this all the time?
Right.
Right? And then you start planning a move and you move somewhere, and maybe for a few months it does feel like that
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then you're living
And
again.
then you're like, because life will catch up with you wherever you are, no matter
Yes.
how rich you are, no matter how much all your ducks are in a row. What's that
Mhm.
phrase? Man plans and God laughs, because that's the way life is.
This is
We had a
exactly.
perfect plan to move here, and things got messed up for us, and we've had to re-navigate things, right?
Right.
So it just
Yeah, and
happens.
you're still here, but it's been much more difficult in some ways than you thought it would be.
100%.
And
And my honeymoon like ended one day. We woke up and I was like, the honeymoon's over
this, that, and the other,
because of
right?
this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. And it wasn't
Yeah.
like, well, the honeymoon's over, we've got to run back home with our tail between our legs. It was like, well, we're here now. What do I have to do? And the difficult thing of having to re-navigate or replan this out, having been here, I'm still a foreigner here. So I had a plan, and now it's a different plan, and I'm figuring out what that new plan is, which I would have to have done anywhere. But I have language barriers, I have immigration barriers, I have, visa barriers. Like, what am
Right.
I switching to? What are we doing? Where are we at? Kids in
But
school.
you can do that. You're an individual now. I don't think being a single parent is is necessarily all it's cracked up to be. I don't think that's anyone's particular goal
Right.
necessarily. But as a single parent, one thing you don't have to deal with is a spouse that might want to move back and
Right.
you want to stay. So when you were running into difficulties, and I'm not saying that's easier for you, don't get me wrong, but that is one element that people that are more than one person need to think about, and it might be a kid.
Hmm.
You might have had a kid that was absolutely miserable,
Right.
and that would have been a driving point. I've seen that a lot where maybe one of the spouses was like really not in it with both feet at the
Right.
beginning,
Yes.
and if that's the case, when you run into something like any kind of issues, that is going to be the springboard that person uses to get everybody back to where they want to live.
Right.
So that is also something that you must look out for, is does everybody that's going want to go? Now, if you've got very young kids and they're like, I'm leaving my friends and all this, might be able to get over that because they will find new friends and forget
Yes.
that they had friends over
And,
there.
on that note, it is the best, I mean, it's one of the best life building skills for a young child is to make new friends in new places. That's
Yes, absolutely. And they're learning a language here. They're doing some things. There are, obviously you have more control over your kids, but I know also some people are moving with teenagers, and that as the kids get older, that can be an issue.
right.
So these are some of the issues that can pop up if not everybody really, really wants to go, and not everybody is on board to stay when issues come up, because
Right.
that is I think a big thing that takes people back. That is one big thing that takes people back.
For sure.
And if we're going to talk about, let's finish the family route. If you are leaving all of your family behind in your old country and moving to Spain or another country, what is your plan when a parent gets sick, or a cousin or a sibling or somebody that maybe you might be the caregiver for if that
Right.
happens?
Yeah.
is that going to drive you back? And I think that's also another thing that happens a lot is people are not prepared to manage those things from abroad.
And hard to even manage it when it's happening in your own town, right? Like if you would
Right.
have stayed, I mean
Very
that's a lot.
hard.
I mean, so that is, do you have brothers and sisters that are going to step in, or do
Hmm.
you have a way of moving them to Spain? Is there a way to make that happen for you? So those are
Yeah.
important things to think about.
Can you afford to travel back? Let's say between Europe and America, if you have siblings, but you have elderly parents, and you've got siblings that are taking care of the elderly parents, but can you afford to fly back and forth several times a year to the
Right.
States to do your part
And it's
without
not
feeling? Because
cheap.
there's the reality. There's two things. There's the reality of what that person needs, what the elderly person or sick person needs, and then there's your guilt of not being there.
Hmm.
So there's two things that you need to think about: is how will you feel when those things happen? And I think this is the combination of responsibilities that people end up moving back for, because they realize that that isn't something that's really manageable,
Right.
you know.
Right. I mean, it's just the way things happen. Both my parents had passed away before we moved, so I had like no
Yeah.
ties except to my friends, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
for me, and we haven't even visited the States since we've been here. And none of us
Yeah.
want to go back. Like, we miss our friends, but most of our friends have come to visit us. So
Right. So you get visits. You do when you move to a nice place like Spain, people will come visit you. But I moved closer to my family. So
right.
for me, moving to Europe actually, even though I'm still living in Spain and I was living in America, I'm now closer to where my
And same with
family is. So for
Jawad,
me,
right?
different.
He's just a hop, skip, and a
And
jump.
Jawad
Yeah.
too. Yes, so we're all a hop, skip, and a jump from our family. So for us, that made sense. But I having felt the emotions and dealing with sick and dying parents, I understand how difficult that would have been for me had I still been in the States. I mean, it would have been impossible,
Right.
to not. I mean, because I have a child, therefore I can't just and a job, so I can't just go to England for 6 months and stay there. That's just not feasible.
Right. And here you can get to England in 2 hours. If you're
Right.
in back in the States, it's 2 days to acclimate, right? You got to fly, then you got to acclimate, and it's
Totally.
not like you can just jump back on your computer in England and do your work if you've been traveling and all of
Right.
that stuff for that amount of
Yeah,
difference.
I could go for a weekend. I could come back home. My brother could go for a couple of days. We could sort of trade off, and we were kind of doing that. But that would have been very difficult. So I was fortunate that we moved closer to family, but I fully understand why people get into a kerfuffle
Hmm.
once they've moved when these sorts of things happen. And it might be that your plan is just to move until your parents get sick and then move back. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that do legitimately come over and they're only planning on staying for a year or two or three or five or 10 or something,
Hmm.
and then they are planning on going back. Those people fall into those statistics, even though that was their plan the whole time,
Right,
right?
right.
All along.
Yeah, I
But
think, when
it's
you look at
difficult.
statistics, because I've read some of these articles about, why people leave and the numbers they come up with, that they portray them in such a harsh way too, because if you've moved back, it's not a failure as well either, right? I feel like some of these articles
Right.
portray it like, well, these people couldn't hack it and they moved back. Well, no, that's not the truth either.
No,
You
yeah.
know?
Sometimes it's planned. I mean, sometimes it's a planned thing. They want to stay while the kids are young, and then once the kids get into college, they want to go and do other things.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of reasons to go and live in a foreign country for a few years. Maybe you're retired and you're like, let's go try living in Costa Rica for a couple of years and then come back. I
Exactly.
mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons to go traveling and go try things out, I think. So that yeah, the numbers are definitely not accurately portrayed, because who knows what everyone's reasons
Right.
are,
And
right?
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
is I love Spain, but I'm already thinking, what is my 5, 10 year plan once my kids graduate from school? Will I want to be? I mean, it's not something I'm like actively, it's not like I'm mad at something, but I'm starting to have those thoughts of like, wait, I do only have one life to live. Maybe it is Spain
Right.
forever, but maybe I want to move to Greece. Maybe I want to move to Vietnam. Who knows? Like, and then I won't
Who
have kids.
knows?
I mean, I won't. I
Anywhere.
mean, I always have kids, but I won't have kids in my house. So then my world changes, right? Then it's like, well, maybe
Your kids will be like looking after themselves until they come back for help. I mean, that's so you can be anywhere when that help is needed. You don't have to get them to school every day, right? So
exactly.
much more. And there are. I mean, I will say it seems to me, and I don't know if this is true, and I think it's changing a bit. But historically, I think it's a lot of retirees moving to Spain, so they have their finances sorted, or they think they do,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have responsibilities much other than their own themselves,
Right.
and that is a different scenario than obviously moving with kids. But still, I think one of the things that people might underestimate is how far your money will go,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's like, it's so cheap in this place, Costa Rica, Spain, wherever these places are you think is going to be cheap. Well, you're still living
Right.
and you're still traveling, and now you're adding travel back to the States or wherever you came from, and you're adding some surprise you never had. So it's not nothing.
Right. And that sticker shock, the sticker happiness, the opposite of shock, right? When you first arrive, and we've discussed this before.
Right.
After you've lived here for a year, the baguette for 60 cents going up to 65 cents becomes your new marker of like that's a huge increase, right? It's not like, I mean,
Right.
oh yeah, it's a nickel, but it's not a nickel. That is a percentage point, and that's going across all of your purchases. Inflation happens around the
Mm-hmm.
world. So yes, it seems so cheap when you
Yeah.
get here, but now you're budgeted your life here, and you're like, well, I don't want to spend an extra $50 this week on groceries. I don't care how cheap it perceives to be. I'm still on a,
So
especially
true.
if you're on a
Yeah.
fixed retired income, that's what it is. And
Right, and you've decided that you can retire in a foreign country because of the amount of money that you have, and you estimate how long that will last, and then either you start living longer than you thought you did, or the prices are going up, the rent's going up, whatever goes up, the
mm-hmm,
taxes go up, whatever, and you're like, oh, I didn't count that in. So you do need to have extra for that to actually work long
right,
term, and you don't have the support of family, and you can't move in with somebody else, a friend or a sibling or something, if things go pear shaped, because those people aren't here,
right,
wherever
right.
here is. And I guess since we're talking about money, we can jump into work. I mean, I think a lot of people think they're going to come here and work, and I think that's very difficult.
It is difficult, especially in a place like Valencia. We don't have the multinational companies. You know, there's some things.
Yeah.
I will say, though, if you're crafty enough, you can make things happen. But yes, you're not going to get a job of like, well, I'll just go get a job at a Starbucks or something just for walking around money. That's not going to happen, right? I think if you
Yeah.
want to work in a foreign country as a foreigner, you have to be either remote or think entrepreneurially. Like, what's the business I can start?
Yes.
But to think you're going to get a job at a
Right.
dentist's office because that's what you did back home, unless you,
It's not going to be that
it's not going to
way.
be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you better speak the language. If
Right.
you don't speak Spanish, just forget it. And in some cases in Valencia and other regions of Spain that have a third language, or a second language,
Yeah.
sorry, third language to us,
Right.
second to them, that so third, fourth language. If you don't speak that language, there's going to be a lot of doors that are shut to you, because you won't be able to communicate with the average local that comes
Right.
in, and that's not going to be acceptable. And you'd be taking a job from somebody around there that maybe wants it, and that's another difficult thing. But I also, like you said, if you also need to be able to work. So if you're coming here as a retiree on a non-lucrative visa, and you like maybe in America or England, you could be doing some things and making a little bit of money here and there and doing stuff. It's just like that's so much more complicated
Right.
here if you're on a visa that you're not allowed to work.
Right.
So there's a lot of elements that make it just so much more complicated to just do a little thing here and
And you
there.
can switch that visa, but it is complicated to figure out the path to switching that visa happen, right? And
Right.
so it's
Exactly.
there's so many different ways to do it and how to make it make sense. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But it does make it hard to jump on maybe an opportunity,
right.
because you can't, someone says, oh, could you just help me with this weekend, or do something, or I'm opening this shop, could you do something? And you're like, well, I can't, but I want to. And now it's just the ease of things is gone in that
100%. Yeah,
regard,
yeah.
is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And you have to be aware of that fact, because you can't just jump on a little job here and
Right.
there, maybe.
And people do move
Yeah.
back also as well because they just miss their own comforts. Some people just can't
Yes.
handle the food here. They want to have McDonald's on every corner, or they want to have to be able to go to shop at Marshalls, and they miss their consumerism. There's a lot of things that
Mm-hmm.
people miss. It is a life change here, and I think if I was younger, I don't know if Valencia would be the right place. I'm older. I don't care
Right.
about
Yeah.
those kind of egotistical things that you care about in your 20s and 30s, and in that shopping and presenting and what are my clothes, like this all I'm just an old dad now, so I don't care about that stuff. So, I don't.
That is so true. That is so true. Like I come to England and I'm still in the mindset that everything's closed on Sundays, which I still can't get my head around, even though I accept the fact that that's how it
Mhm.
is. I come to England and I'm like, oh, we can't do things on Sunday, and my brother's like, what do you mean? Like everything's open, and I'm like, oh my god, yes it is. Like I can actually go. Me maybe less hours, but I was, it's you have to change your whole mindset or else it'll irritate you forever.
Right.
So you have to get in on it, and once you're in on it, you're fine. But if you can't, like you were saying, if you can't quite get in on that and it is eating away at you, it will eat away at
I
you.
mean, I think people have this idea that they're like, oh, I want to live that slower pace of life. But when they get here, they really realize they don't want to. They think they want
No,
to.
they really
Yeah.
don't. That's so true.
and
And it's hard. It's hard to do it.
I mean, it was a couple months for me to transition, but I wanted to transition into this new lifestyle, right? Of the slower
Mhm.
pace. And now I don't know it any other way. So it'll be interesting when I do go back to the States and someone's like, let's go out for dinner at like 7. I'm like, but no, we eat at 9. Like, why are we and why are we having a big dinner? We want to have a big lunch at 4. Can we do that? And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, good for you that it took you a couple of months. I'm still adjusting. I love
really?
it, but I still have moments where it hits me and I have to be like, yes, that's what happened. That's how it's working.
Right.
And I'm fine with it, but I still have those moments where I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not how it works." And I've been here 6 years.
Right.
So, it's like I'm fine with it and I'm happy. It kind of makes me happy when those things happen because it reminds me that I'm supposed to be living a slower life.
Hmm.
So I like it, but I could also see how that would irritate people that don't want to really fully adjust. They want to live in another country, but they want everything the way they had it.
Right. Right.
And then it doesn't really work that way, and it can't work that way. So, if you were just somebody that's very capable of being chill and that on a holiday, but you want your life to be very fast paced, there's a lot of these retirement looking other countries, probably Costa Rica, Spain, Portugal, all of these places, Italy. You're never going to feel comfortable in those
Right.
places because
Right.
it's never going to be jamming the way you want it to,
Right. Right.
It's a lifestyle. It really
It
is.
is a lifestyle. And I mean, people talk about it, but this, happens everywhere. Is the bureaucracy can be a lot to handle. You don't speak the language, you don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the way things are done, and even in certain countries, I mean, people don't even like the way their own bureaucracy is done, but they've lived in it, so
Yeah.
they either have been broken down enough and accept it, or they just accept it and know how to and they know it takes
Know how to
7
use
days to
it.
get this
Yeah.
thing done and they just do it. They don't like it, but they do it. But
Knowledge is
right.
everything. Your knowledge of how things work in your country, however irritating or not irritating, is manageable.
Right.
Adjusting as an adult to a way another country does things, which often seems completely impractical and illogical, is can really mess with your head
Right.
of like whether you really want to be dealing with that or not on a long-term
Right.
basis. But as I moved to America, I've lived in other countries. They're all special in their own way,
Hmm.
and it's really just a matter of, are you willing to do things differently because that's how things are done in another
Right.
country or not?
And we talk about another country, but if you're coming from like the States, and I'm sure in England too, if you moved to London and Cambridge, some things are done differently. If you're going from New York to LA, it's a complete culture shock, because just because you
Yeah,
speak the same language, life in LA is completely different than life in New York.
completely
And
different. Yeah,
Alabama is different than Chicago. So, and if you have
yeah.
a hard time, if you've never left a place, or you've lived in a place for a long time, people say, "Oh, the Spaniards, it's so hard to get into their life. They're a closed people." No, that's absolutely. I'm going to fight that tooth and nail. Spaniards are not closed off people. Human beings are closed off people. And when
Yeah.
you've created, and we've talked about this before, when you have your group of friends, it's hard to let new people in because you have that group set up. And if you lived in
Yeah.
a town, big or small in the States, if you live there for a long time, how many friends are you bringing into your group that you've set up for the past 10, 20 years? So
Right. It's not
it's not
happening,
happening. So
right?
it's
Yeah.
not
So
that you don't
you
speak the language or you don't know or the Spaniards are mean. It's just hard to make friends, and the older you get, it's harder. So what are you doing to reach out? Are you going to language
I
exchanges?
don't
Do you have like for me it's easy. I met you because we had kids, right? We met through,
Yeah.
like it's
But I don't know if it's harder. I mean, it's harder because the way you are in your life, I guess. But it is full on a personality thing.
true, 100%.
If you have never ever moved and created a whole new friendship group in your life, and now you're thinking that you're going to move to another country and do that, and you don't know if that's a talent you
Right,
have, it's a talent. It's a talent, and it's a waiting game.
right,
You will meet a lot of people. If you have to, okay, you have to be social
right,
for starters, and you have to go out and meet a lot of people that are not your friends, and you have to become friends with all of them. And then out of all those people, you have to figure out which ones actually you want to be really good friends
right,
with. So you end up with acquaintances and good friends, but that can take months and years.
right, right,
It took months and years when you did it the first time when you were kids and you were kids,
right,
right? So if you've never done that before, be prepared to put in the time to do that. And it means going to things you don't want to go to. Like, I think a lot of people are maybe, I would consider myself like a social person, but also an introvert. Like, I love to be home. So for me to be like, I'm going to go out and go to an event that I don't know anybody, I don't want to do that.
mm-hmm,
But I will go and I will suck it up and I'll be friendly and I'll meet people and then hopefully find friends that way. And that's what you have to do. And if you're not capable of doing that, you're going to have a very hard time getting
right,
friends, I
right,
think.
100%.
Because you can meet plenty of people, I think, in most of the places now that are on the list of places that you might move to, whether you're moving to South America or Spain or Italy or Portugal. You can find a network of expats if you don't speak the
Right.
language. That's not a problem,
You find the expats,
and
and I do. I mean, I am lucky. I mean, you're lucky too. We have kids, so it's easy for us to meet the Spanish locals
it
through the
is, yeah.
schools, and you're already sharing a similar interest of complaining or praising about the school. So, you're at the, but
Hmm.
you have
Right.
the conversation or openers as the conversation
You have a
openers.
common
Yeah,
ground.
yeah. So I mean, that's something I think. Um,
And if the kids are younger too, it helps because you're maybe being invited to birthday parties where the parents are expected to
right.
stay. So we came when Xena was 7, so that helped a lot in getting to know people. Nowadays, I drop her off at parties. I wouldn't meet
Yeah,
any of those
unfortunately, we
parents.
missed the birthday party thing for
Yeah,
the girls were just a little too old.
yeah.
They have parties, but I ain't invited.
You're not invited to stay.
But yeah, I go out and I meet, and I'm, obviously I'm friendly. I am an outgoing person, so I'm the kind of person that will talk to the grocery store people because they see me all the time, and I ask how they're doing, and
Right.
they see me with the kids, and they ask where are the kids today. So that's how relationships are formed. And like you said, it is a
Mm-hmm.
skill, it is a talent, it's something you have to do. And if you've never had to do it,
If you haven't worked on that skill in your adult life, it's going to be a
right.
shock. And I can see why people get discouraged and disillusioned when they move to a foreign country and realize that they don't have any good friends
Mm-hmm.
after some time. It takes, I think it takes years to build those
Right.
friendships that you feel very confident about, that you have people that will, I always put it this way, like, do you have a friend that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning to take you to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a friend. That's somebody that those are people you need in your
Right.
life. And you're not going to have those for a little bit, and it's going to take time to find those people within all the people that you meet. And it may not be the first 15, 20 people that you
Right.
meet that person sort of grows into. So it's a long-term thing. And like you said, it's harder if you're coming here as a retiree,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. You don't have the kids to help. Maybe get a dog. That'll
Right.
probably
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, you dog people.
Either dogs or kids, right?
Right.
Like you need these kind of opening things, but there's a lot of groups, and so there's a difference. Yes, the Spanish are very friendly, but building those friendships, very different,
Right.
very, very different scenario.
And I think another reason why people leave is, it's the financials, but they look at the taxes. And it does, for certain people, it can eat away their income. The taxes here are really high. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're a high income earner, it is a gut punch to how much is taken from your income. If you're making under 75,000 a year or 60,000 a year, like similar, you're like, this is fun, and your quality of
Yeah.
life is vastly improving on that same amount of income, right? But if you're making a huge
Yeah.
amount, you're paying a much huger portion of your salary to taxes than meet your bank account. That may not seem like a wise transition, you know, but on that note, if you stay in a lot of places like in America, just because your money isn't being eaten by taxes, it's being eaten by corporations across the globe. So it's not like that's going into your bank account. Your mortgage is three
Right.
times higher. Your health insurance is 100 times higher. Your groceries are so much more expensive. So someone's still going to grab that money. Here it's the government, and at least you're getting health care and really inexpensive mass transit systems, and your money's going for a
Yeah.
collective good versus the pockets of one person. You know.
Yeah, but definitely financial plan before you
Right.
move. I mean, if you need to know what that is so you know how much money you have so you're not suddenly scrambling for a job that you'll never
Right.
find here, you know? And I mean, you might find something, but I mean, if you're not planning on working here, it's unlikely you're going to suddenly fall into something
Right.
in that regard. And I think for us when we were in the States, we paid so much for health insurance that didn't cover anything really,
Mm-hmm.
but we had to have it. But if we'd had a catastrophe in health, we would have been one of those people that probably would have gone bankrupt on it,
Right.
or would have been very difficult trying to manage it. So not having that, for me personally, not having that hanging over my head as something that might happen is very relaxing. So I am willing to pay my taxes for the healthcare that we are provided here, for 100% sure, 200%.
Yes, I agree totally with that. I was, as you were speaking, it was making me think that the thing that's different. America, you have to have health insurance and you have to pay for something they will not let you use. And you pay a huge amount of
Exactly.
money for something you are penalized for using. Here you pay and if
Yeah.
you have private health insurance here, let's not even talk about the Spanish, but like the government stuff. You have private health insurance, it's very inexpensive comparatively, and no one's stopping you at the gate from accessing more care. And your bill doesn't
Exactly.
go
Yeah.
up the next year being like, well, you had all these
Yeah.
tests last year, so now we're doubling your insurance. It will go up for a rate of
Right.
inflation amount, not because you've accessed
Yeah.
something that they don't want you ever
And I
using.
and I've and I've seen friends in the States have insurance company deny certain care they
Mm-hmm.
wanted because they decided that they weren't going to pay for it, and you're stuck between a rock and a
Right.
hard place at that point. So that is something for me, and also the amount of time out of my January or whatever that I spent managing the healthcare marketplace to get the insurance. That was hours out of my life that I'll never get
Mm-hmm.
back. And I just have health insurance. It rolls over. Yes, it does go up every year because we're getting older. So that's happening. But we also don't necessarily have to have the health insurance. We can just go with the Spanish
Mm-hmm.
system because we're residents here. But we do have, you have the benefit of the private health insurance do tend to have more English speakers.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into complicated like vocabulary of that, that's still a bit more comfortable. So you have those varieties. But I mean, I do think that to me is a huge stress level that's off me,
Right.
that's well worth it for me not living in the States for that, because our health insurance was not a good one, really, but we were paying a lot
Right.
for it.
Right. Right.
And I think a lot of people fall into that, but like you said before, you do still have to monitor how much money you actually have. No one else can help you with
Right.
this. You need to look at how much money you have. You need to look at how much it's going to cost you to live in another country, and include a little bit of inflation into that,
Mm-hmm.
and be smart about that so that it works for you, because there are definitely a lot of people that will move back to their home country because all these things, some of them were a bit of a
Right.
surprise. And that's not necessary. You can definitely research a lot of these things ahead of time, I think.
Right, right. And I mean, for us, my kids love it here. I love it here. The idea of ever having moved back is no. So that's also, have you
Hmm.
gotten rid of your safety net, right? So I have to make it here,
Right.
right? I mean, just in life.
Right.
It's not like I'm in some place where I have to make it, but I'm just saying, like, we always have to make it work here because we don't want to, none of us want to go back. College isn't an option back there. Like, there's all this stuff here. So my mind is shifted. It's like, we don't have an exit strategy. What's the strategy to make things work? So think about that when you move. Are you always going to have an exit strategy? Then it's hard to just, it's harder to commit to a new life if you're already thinking that you can
Hmm.
leave it at any time.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true because then you're not like thinking about how to make it
Right,
work constantly. You're thinking, oh, well, maybe this is the limit. This is the place. This is the limit. This is the thing that makes us go back. And maybe 2 or 3 years somewhere is a great plan.
hmm,
And then you go back. Maybe people are just looking for an experience. But I think what we're talking about in this episode primarily is if you are planning on making it a permanent move, like you said, it also has to be mentally a permanent
right,
move. And what do you make? How do you make it work there? And how do you change it so it works there instead of having, oh yeah, we'll just go back.
right. And you know, the thing is when you go back, what does that mean? Because it's a different place that you left as well, and you're used to the things here. So
Mm.
I would like to
Right?
talk to people who've moved back and be like, so really, how was it? You know, like not the people who only planned
Right?
it for a year, but the people that like went back because it wasn't what they expected. To be like, how was your transition back? You know?
Right. Yeah. And the cost of things. I mean, look, we talk about the high cost of taxes and the high cost of things, but I mean, things are cheaper in Spain
Right.
to some degree. So when you go back and you're starting, I just went back for like a couple of weeks, and the amount of money I was handing over for basic things, I was like, oh my god,
Right.
it is a bit of a shock if you don't go back and forth regularly and are not keeping up on those difference in costs. It's a
Right.
surprise,
Right.
a little bit of a surprise.
And I will say, I'm also someone that has never moved back anywhere. So I've always moved to the
Mm.
next place. So, like, if I were to leave Spain, in 10 years or whatever, thinking about retiring somewhere else, it's not going to be back to New York or Los Angeles or anywhere else I've lived, right? Like, it's going to be what's
Mm.
the next
Right.
adventure? So,
That's true. I've never done that either. That's so true. Yeah.
my had friends who are like, "When'd you move back to Vegas?" I'm like, "I already did that. I did that. I don't want to go because it's also not where I look back at places, I'm like, but they're not the places that I used to live in, and I don't like what they've become. I want that special,
So
I want that
different.
memory to
Yeah.
be that memory of living there at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It will never be the
That even
same, right? It'll never be the same to go
right,
back like that. But I think if people that go for a couple of years and then they do go back to where their parents and family and friends are, that's a very short amount of time that I think that's
right,
possible. But then you, like you said, it would be interesting to hear because you still have this like my life in Spain or my
right.
life wherever you were before. Like what? Like are you missing that?
Like, how does it feel to
It's
buy
it's hard,
a $5 baguette when you were paying 65
right?
cents?
This is also a lot of. I mean, the weather. I mean, we're not gonna lie. The weather overall, it's great
Right.
in Spain too. So
Well,
a lot of
you may
people
think
come
it
from
coming
worse
from
weather.
Arlington, but from LA, I will say this weather is a shocker to me. It is, I was looking at temperatures on my couch in LA and not looking at overall climate. So the humidity has been hard
Mm,
for me. I mean, I'm dealing with it.
right.
It's fun. But I'm used to living in LA where it's 90 a week and then 60 for 3 days. There's year round, the weather is a roller coaster. So you're always getting a break. From here, the winter is 4 months
That
long,
is
summer
true.
is three
Yeah.
months, and the other months you get your
Yeah.
shoulder months. But like, you don't get a 60-degree day in the summer here. It is 85 to 100 for 3 months,
Yeah.
and that's the way it's going to be. And you're lucky to get a rainstorm. And I've dealt with it, but when I was 85 in LA is completely different than 85 here. You know,
Right.
and 65 in LA is completely different than 65 here. I've acquiesced. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
going to
do I
leave
do
because of the
think
weather, but it's not what I thought.
yeah, but I think the majority of people are not coming from warmer
Right.
climates. I mean, there are people coming from warmer climates like you, but I think most people are one of the draws of places like Spain and Italy, and maybe I think Costa Rica is another one that's often on the top of the list, is the
Right.
weather, and people are coming from colder climates where they might have really hot summers, but they also have really cold
Right.
winters,
Right.
and that's a kind of a one of those things, right? But like you said, no place has perfect weather. I've lived in some nice places like you. I mean, LA has close to perfect
Right.
weather, still has its issues, right? But probably the best weather that I've ever lived in was LA, I
Mine too. I
think.
mean, you can't beat LA weather.
And I but I went back there, and it's also not like that anymore. Now you've got mosquitoes,
Hmm.
and it's a bit more humid. It's not like it was when I lived there back in the sort of 2000s.
Right.
Like, it just wasn't. So things are changing everywhere as
Right.
well
They are.
in that regard. But the humidity, we've discussed the humidity because we were living up in the mountains, right? And I'm like, it's not that humid here. So I'm waiting to see how it is now that we're living down closer to the water,
Hmm.
to see sort of how that goes. But yeah, I think air conditioning is needed more than it was when we were up in the mountains, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
And that's not something that's everywhere. And we were told by the agent that we purchased our apartment
Hmm.
from that the air conditioning didn't work, and then we just put batteries in the remote, and it works. So we just I've never had something like that happen. I've never had someone in Spain tell me something doesn't work only to find out that it works.
That's
Never
well. That
happened.
is brilliant.
And Jawad just like put the things in it. He checked the filters. We turned it on, and it started blowing cold air. And we're all looking at each other like it's Christmas.
Well, that's amazing.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. I think it would be remiss not to quickly talk a little bit about the language barrier. We've talked about this a lot in other episodes, so we won't dwell on it. But obviously, you have to make a choice on whether you're going to learn or not
Right.
learn. And if you are going to learn, it's going to take longer than you think. It took me, I mean, we've been here 6 years. I still am not at all where I thought I would be. I'm managing. I can have a conversation in Spanish, but no, I thought I would be fluent after 6 years, for
And
sure.
I'm nowhere near. I thought I'd be at 3 years. I can't have conversations. I do not study it. Again, single dad. I've got a lot on my plate to then figure out how I'm going to pay for more classes for myself. But I do
Yeah.
understand a lot more. I because we're in a large city, if you use a little bit, you'll find out someone will meet you halfway at the government offices.
For sure. And that
Yeah.
prohibits you from
But
learning.
it prohibits you from
Yeah.
learning. But however, this is where you learn the Spanish friend. Make that Spanish friend. Say, can I buy you a coffee if you come with me to this thing? That's a great way to forge some friendships here. Like, find some Spaniards that you can lasso into your life and take them out to
Yeah.
dinner or something for their help. But yeah, it is. It's and the older you get, the harder it is to learn a language. It just is. And
I think, and I just want to add on to that. It's not because it's harder for you to learn a language. It's because you're not in the environment to be learning all the
Right.
time. But you might be when you're 20. Your brain can learn the language. Like, it's just your environment and how it's working is just not conducive to learning a language quickly.
Well, I disagree
And I want to
because your brain. I don't. Because your brain literally.
You can
but
disagree.
Your brain. I'll disagree because your brain literally has a harder time learning at 50 years old than it does at 20. 20s, the sponge years. I will agree, though, we're also not in. Our life is completely different. There's no reason to learn a language because there is Google Translate everywhere. We're on our devices. Just we're less in society than we used to be as well. So it is harder.
Yeah, I feel like if I was speaking Spanish 24/7 because I was in college, or I had a whole bunch of friends that were Spanish that didn't speak English, maybe my boyfriend was Spanish, I would be way ahead. I would be way ahead of where I am.
Of course.
For sure. And that's all I'm saying. So I want to also tie this in quickly to friendships. This is one of the things that I think people have a very, very hard time with, because if you don't speak the language and you're not learning it quickly, which is hard when it really comes to the reality of living in another country, unless you're literally on your own in a village in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Then it makes it hard to, you have a whole bunch of people you're not going to be able to forge friendships with properly, because you're not going to be invited to a Spanish dinner. Because, well, you're going to sit there, be the only person that doesn't speak Spanish. You can have Spanish friends where you meet with them individually and they can become very good friends, but you're not going to be included in the overall Spanish, like, family dinners and things like that. And I know that that is something that people feel very much like, I'm not integrating the way I thought I would, because, and that a lot of that is the language barrier. And so obviously the language, not having the language has sort of multiple facets to it that could be an issue if you don't have the right personality to just deal with it.
And that goes back to the personality, because I think if you move into another town that speaks your language, are you going to be invited to their family dinners either? They've already got their families. They've already got who's coming to those dinners.
But if you're entertaining enough, you might be invited.
Well, I mean, I'm a dinner party person, and I mean,
you are.
But as soon as I first moved, I remember I had a friend visit, and we lived here 3 months, and I had a dinner party of like, cocktail party of 30 people over, and she's like, "How did you have 30 people? You've been here for a couple months." And I was like,
yeah, because you have the personality for it. And you've moved a lot too, like me. Like, we've both moved a lot and we know what it takes to move to a new place. So moving here might have had the extra element of a language, but the process is very similar.
Right.
So, know yourself, I think, is is kind of the gist of this whole episode. Know yourself and make accountabilities for the things that you're not sure you know how to do well.
Exactly.
So you can succeed if you wish to.
And you know what? You will succeed if you wish to. So there you go. On that note, Tanya.
Goodbye. Hasta luego. See you next time.
Hasta luego. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Our Spain.
We really appreciate all the support we have received since we started this podcast.
Visit ourspain.com for transcripts to this and our other episodes, some exciting merchandise, and if you are so inclined, there is also a link to buy us a coffee, which helps support this fun endeavor.
And please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Spain Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're listening.
It really helps us stay connected, and we'd love to hear from you.
Let us know if there's any topics you would like for us to talk about. Even though we are happy to talk about anything, we also want to make sure it's informative for you.
Exactly.